This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Israel and Iran have now been launching missiles at one another for at least 4 days, and despite pressure from the White House and elsewhere, de-escalation is not currently forthcoming. So, in this video, we thought we'd try our best to figure out how this all ends, and why there really don't seem to be many good outcomes. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. So, let's get straight into it. As we see it, there are broadly 3 ways this ends. The first is that these strikes force Iran to speedily accept a new nuclear deal. Judging by his recent posts on social media, this seems to be what Trump's hoping for. In a series of increasingly panic truth social posts over the weekend, Trump claimed that Iran must make a deal before there's nothing left, that he was giving Iran a second chance, and that we can easily get a deal done between Iran and Israel and end this bloody conflict. For context, negotiations on a new nuclear deal between the US and Iran had stalled in recent weeks, apparently over the issue of uranium enrichment, with Iran insisting on the ability to enrich uranium domestically, and the US instead suggesting that Iran should import its enriched uranium from third countries. Anyway, Trump seems to be hoping that Iran, presumably desperate to put an end to the Israeli strikes, would concede on this point and accept the deal currently on offer, on the condition that the US tells Israel to stop the strikes. So far, however, this looks unlikely. The 6th round of US-Iran negotiations, due in Oman on Sunday, were cancelled. Iranian officials have suggested that they can no longer trust the US as a negotiating partner, and the regime now has less political space to agree to a deal, given any concessions would be perceived as capitulation by both hardline elements within the regime and at least some ordinary Iranians. It's also worth mentioning that Israel targeted members of Iran's negotiating team, including top Iranian diplomat Ali Shamkhani, who told NBC News only last month that Iran was ready to give up its nuclear ambitions and have better relations with the US. Obviously, killing negotiators makes negotiating more, not less, difficult, which suggests these strikes weren't intended to accelerate a deal. So, that's the first option. Iran gets pushed into a new nuclear deal. On to the second option, regime change. This seems to be Netanyahu's ambition. In a statement on Friday evening, the Israeli Prime Minister said, quote, "The time has come for the Iranian people to stand up for your freedom from the evil and oppressive regime." And in further comments on Sunday morning, he claimed that senior leaders in Iran are already packing their bags. Israeli officials have even told the Wall Street Journal that assassinating Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is, quote, "not off limits." For what it's worth, though, we think outright regime change is unlikely. While there's widespread dissatisfaction at the Ayatollah's regime within Iran, these strikes will probably cause a rally round the flag effect, as Iranians rally to support their government in a time of crisis. This is unsurprising. After all, if there's one thing Iranians like less than their own government, it's the Israeli government, especially when Israel is dropping missiles on Tehran. While it's obviously hard to gauge public opinion in Iran, there's already some evidence that this is happening. Over the weekend, crowds gathered in Tehran to demand not that the regime step down, but that the regime build a nuclear bomb to keep Iran safe. You get the point. Regime change looks unlikely, given the rally around the flag effect. But on top of this, regime change just isn't a good idea. As we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan, regime change very rarely, if ever, goes to plan. And when the incumbents are brought down, they're usually succeeded by either a more extremist outfit or just chaos. While more hawkish elements in Israel and Washington might not mind the idea of Iran collapsing into chaos, after all, they might think that a chaotic Iran would have a harder time building a nuke, the experience of Iraq suggests that chaos in the Middle East usually doesn't benefit anyone in the long run. So that's the second option, regime change, not dissimilar to the policy the US pursued in Iraq and Afghanistan. On to the third option, some sort of stalemate. In this case, there's no deal. The regime doesn't fall, and Israel and Iran continue to trade missile strikes indefinitely. This is an appallingly risky outcome, given that Israel already has nuclear weapons and that further strikes will only encourage Iran to get a nuke itself. This looks likely at the moment, given that, at least according to reports, Israel's strikes in Iran's nuclear facilities have been relatively ineffective. This was always the conventional wisdom, that without American help, Israel could only delay Iran's missile program for a few months, or maybe a year. If Iran does dash for a bomb, the big question is how America reacts. While Trump has tried to distance himself from Israel in recent Truth Social posts, insisting on Sunday that, quote, the US had nothing to do with the attack on Iran, if Iran goes for a bomb, he might decide the US has to intervene. Even if Iran doesn't dash for the bomb, a prolonged period of fighting between Israel and Iran obviously has lots of escalatory risks, and the longer it goes on, the more likely third country involvement becomes. As we've hopefully demonstrated, none of these are good outcomes, which is why, regardless of whose side you're on, Israel's decision to bomb Iran looks imprudent to say the least. Even if you think Iran can never be allowed to have a nuclear bomb, as most people do, these strikes will risk making the Iranian regime, or whatever succeeds it, ultimately less likely to agree to any deal, and therefore more likely to obtain a bomb in the future. The only way to truly reduce this risk without a deal is to bomb Iran so heavily that it lacks the capacity to organise a nuclear program at all. But Israel can't do this without American support, and this would imply causing immense harm to ordinary Iranians, the majority of which don't even support the regime. Again, this isn't intended as a partisan shot at Israel, but what we're trying to demonstrate is that once you look past the militaristic rhetoric and actually try to figure out how this all ends, it's hard to see a good outcome. Nor is this in any way a defense of the Ayatollah's regime, and if recent history suggested that military meddling in the Middle East worked, Netanyahu's talk of regime change might hold more weight. But post-Iraq and Afghanistan, there's a pretty widespread consensus that pursuing regime change in other countries isn't a good idea, and usually backfires. Perhaps the best case scenario now is that, after a period of back and forth, Iran ultimately accepts a deal, but the escalatory risks in the meantime are pretty terrifying. Like a lot of things right now, this topic is increasingly complex and ever-changing. And here at TLDR, we're committed to learning more to help us understand the world around us. Luckily for us, our sponsor this week, Brilliant, helps us do just this. We know that learning a little every day is one of the most important things you can do, both for personal and professional growth. And Brilliant helps you get smarter in minutes a day. You can even perfect your skills wherever you are, whether you're on the go or winding down. It's the opposite of mindless scrolling. Brilliant has the perfect mix of engaging problems, competitive features, and daily encouragement that keeps you motivated and on track. For instance, Brilliant's data science content uses real-world data to train you to see trends and make better informed decisions. No matter your level of skill, these courses are perfect to start or continue learning data analysis, with a full suite of content covering data visualizations, algorithms, regression models, and more. Learn how to parse and visualize massive datasets from brands you know to make them easier to interpret. Plus, all content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from Stanford, MIT, Caltech, Microsoft, Google, and more. To try Brilliant for free, visit brilliant.org/TLDR, scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the description. By doing so, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, and they'll know you came from us, which really helps us out.